welcome to The People's Art. It's great that you could join us, and we really have got a fantastic show for you today. We're humbled by the feedback to the programme, but remember, this is your show. So tell us how you think that we could make it better. What would you like to see on The People's Art? So please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you, and you can get in touch by emailing at art@thepeoplesvoice.tv. Now, we have a fantastic guest in with us today. Poppy, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, and you've got some lovely work. I can't wait to talk about it, and we will in detail as we get going. But before we do, just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started as an artist.
Well, it was a sort of pretty much a standard route, really. I found out that was my main skill, and followed it through the conventional routes of going to art college to do the foundation degree, and then on to the degree proper, which ended up being a teaching and art degree.
Right.
I didn't find any of that particularly easy or even that helpful, but
yeah,
I went through it and I got the requisite bit of paper.
Yeah, I understand that, because that's a common story, and I know the educational setting myself very well. We don't always make the best art within those tight constraints and those parameters. We tend to learn more as we break out of it.
Yes.
So if that's what you're trying to say,
it is, yes.
I understand you. I mean, your work has got a real spirit to it. It's got a soulfulness.
I do hope so.
I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about this. And how do you explain your work in terms of that spiritual soul journey connection? Because it's definitely in there.
Right. Well, to me, and this has been the same for the past 20 years now, the motivating factor than anything that I do at all is to express the interconnectedness of all beings, whether we can see them, whether we can't see them, whether they're human, whether they're non-human, and to bring them all together into a sort of a seamless whole, which shows the sort of dance of life. And that is the most important thing to me to express to the world.
I think that's really powerful, because and I can relate to it obviously from my work, but so many artists, not necessarily in the outsider areas, let's say go back to the academic world, they tend not to look at that. It's more about imitating material objects, not necessarily looking at the deeper connectedness, as you say, of all these different things. So it's funny, but I mean, I don't know about you, but as a visual person, I see, we all do. We see faces in clouds, faces in trees, that kind of thing. And I'm looking at your work. We've got a piece over there, and we've got stuff around the studio we can look at. But you've got this kind of subliminal thing going on. There's an image within an image. And how does that? I mean, what are you trying to say when you're doing that? Is it just natural? Is it just?
It is just natural. I mean, they're all based on interactions with nature, and it might be, quite a mundane interaction that I've had, but it all comes together to express the beauty and the flow of. It's just natural. It just comes when you start observing the connectedness of everything. You can't help but express it.
Well, relating to that, I mean, and it's a great word, isn't it? Connectedness of everything. In the past, many years ago, you've worked on books, and you've written material, and you've illustrated, and I know what that's about myself, because I've done similar things. Tell us more about that. I mean, just in terms of what you were trying to achieve when you were doing that kind of work.
Right. Well, since I was a very wee child, I had experiences that other people didn't have. And that continued right through in my adolescence, and it got a bit out of control during my adolescence, and it got quite frightening. I didn't know what to do. And unlike lots of people who say, I met a teacher and they showed me well, I didn't. And it was a time when you couldn't go to the library. There were no, the library was full of really lurid books. You couldn't go to the internet, so I was pretty much on my own with it, and I had to sort of tune in and find my own answers. It wasn't until I was about 29 that I actually found people that could tell me, how do you deal with this? How do you work with it positively? And as soon as I learned that, I thought, I've got to tell other people how to do this, because it can change your life, basically. From being a victim of things you haven't got a clue what's going on around you to actually being part of.
So your art became a medium for it basically.
They all came together. It's just trying to communicate with people. Really.
I mean, I haven't read any of the, I've looked at your website, of course. I've not gone into detail looking at the books, but I can see there's an essence of, as with your illustrations, which we'll look at, there's this essence of teaching, and guiding and inspiring. Without
being too about it, it's just gently trying
to... I mean, looking at some of the commercial illustration, it looks very different to your art, your other art, and but it's, I mean, illustration isn't it? Don't you
Yes.
find that when
Oh,
you paint,
yeah,
when you're painting
absolutely.
something that is coming through you,
Yes.
when you try and then be slightly logical about it, and you have this kind of message that you're trying to convey in this way, it always comes out different.
Yes.
So
It does. And much more worried about the technicality of it, whereas that's much more letting go and seeing what the happy accidents that happen and whatever. But that's much more kind of rigid in a way.
yeah, I love it. I love the
Technical.
colours. Very different in terms of colour.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. Well, it's really nice work. We've got more to come from Poppy. We'll chat more about her work later. That's great. So we'll be back in a little while. But first, let's go to the word on the street.
I mean, we've just both graduated from a fine art course, so yeah, of course it can. I mean, even going to an exhibition, you come out slightly different, thinking about the world slightly different, and it changes your perception on things.
Yeah, and even like doing it from like making it, I guess you have to really think about like why you're doing it. It's very conceptual, so it's not just like the physical thing or what it looks like. There's a lot of kind of meaning and all of that behind it. So yeah, I think it can.
We live in a world of change, so everything can change.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it completely depends. I mean, if you, I mean, art can be considered to be anything. It can be like it can be any sort. It can be like passed on through any medium. It could be film. It could be painting. It could be anything. And each person's going to have their own kind of experience with it, and it can change your. It can genuinely alter your perception on past events, and perhaps alter how you face future events and stuff. And I think that is what our personality is. Our personality is how we face events, how we face situations, and how we conduct ourselves. And I think art can change that.
For me, I think some people have deeper like emotional ties to certain mediums of art than others. For me, it'd probably be like more music and performing arts sort of thing. But some people obviously have like deeper ties to paintings, etc. like that. So I think it can change it. And a certain piece of music, certain piece of like theatre and stuff obviously do bring up certain memories and certain emotions and stuff. So I do think it can change people's lives.
It's a difficult one.
Well, yes. I mean, art by its very essence is about interpretation. If you asked Stevie Wonder, the Matchstick Man Larry, and Scarf and Storm Thorgerson stand on Waterloo Bridge and say, right, see this wondrous view, right, interpret it your own way. Because they are all artists in their own way, they would all interpret it differently. And someone walking past after seeing their interpretations would change their perspective either broadly or subtly. So.
We love hearing your thoughts, so if we haven't been to a city near you, remember, you can always contact us. Now to a music video. This is Slippy Skills.
What brings you to see me?
Well, I thought I'd bring my drums by to have a little session with you.
That's great, man. What are we waiting for?
You can't imitate my style with pens and highlighters, cause my wordplay's kinetic like subway writers. Jumps off our lines through towns like hitchhikers, making tracks stand out like a pair of kikers. Igniting all-nighters, spit flames at firefighters. When it comes to nail biters, they'll burn out like firelighters. Roll with stunt riders, insiders breaking incisors. Throw off Boy Scout bikers like two-faced strikers. Supported by stabilizers, can't shine without reflectors. Taking leads from the rectors on you like ticket inspectors. Trying to put them with train of thought, idea in the settings. I cut them short and go over fake heads like projectors. So here's a message for your stamp collectors. Write your own letters, deliver your own lectures. Cause I rupture receptors like junkie injectors. And it cheap, pepper tight like Hannibal Lecters. Your rap styles rapacious, don't go so ostentatious. Fitting proverbs between words where there should be spaces. Vocally audacious, cause mostly I'm colloquially loquacious, vivacious. Pass to raise the bar a few more paces. Listen with this myth is dangerous cause it's highly contagious. It's outrageous, how unsung heroes stay tenaciously courageous with no status. It's hard to survive unless you're famous. So most remain nameless in a state of hiatus. Forced in a stasis. Grace down never endings, the case is a daily basis of chasing the faces, oasis. Go through emotional phases to get lost in hedge mazes. What stays as entertainers are praised for days greatness. The game shamelessly aimless for the average ignoramus. Mainframes brainless. Been a long time since it's been gracious, but it's on the main stages like it's music for the ages. Only care about the wages, I care about what's on my pages. Feeling when I'm revealing these feelings I be concealing. They got me kneeling and squealing, but I won't let them keep stealing. Cause I be dealing and peeling until the pool is appealing. My thoughts are streaming and scheming and stop me screaming when dreaming. Understanding the meaning needs some spiritual cleaning. Heart takes a beating every evening. Run my guns to that bleeding like babies teething. Glitter wheezing through meditated breathing. Seeking a reason, don't just settle for somebody that sounds pleasing. To the ears keep teasing with speculous speaking. Taking the ideas, dull and reeling up and lost, but I'm leaking. My subconscious keeps conceiving concepts as I'm sleeping. What's meant peeping from the ceiling, you selective reading. Parasites intervening, free sedative, silent like beaming. Media's misleading, policing what you're perceiving. Think before you start believing, cause looks can be deceiving. Even Adam and Eve couldn't achieve freedom in Eden. But to break it down simplistic, I liberate linguistics, articulately artistic with clues, casually cryptic, uncategorized characteristics, contradicting statistics, so realistic, supernatural mystics couldn't predict it. Reiterate reasons, my repertoire's realistic, obliterate the obstacles, opportunistic, optimistic. Hip-hop's apocalyptic, my box pops are here to fix it, pessimistically nitpicking, picnic with suspicion. Upholding journalistic journeys with full jurisdiction, authentic authority runs through these authors' descriptions, create friction with fabricated fraudulent fiction. These operations open minds and closed opposed opinions. Expressionistic afflictions with futuristic predictions, mustering mental depictions with deeply detailed descriptions, rapidly respirating relevant rhymes with no restriction. Called the bark is my prescription for this musical addiction. Yeah, Slippy skills, LU free. Burning down towns to the 3rd degree. Brainstorm recordings, 2013, boy.
I love that. And if you've made your own music video and you want the world to get in touch, well then send it in to us. Anyway, we're back now with Poppy Palin, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your tattooing, because you've got this ritualistic tattooing that went on in the past.
Yes,
I don't know whether you're still involved in it. And people, you know, giving you ideas about what you wanted to do. And well, tell us more about it. I'm fascinated by tattooing. So.
Back in the day, when I was at art college, I was making a sort of sideline by painting people's jackets. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could actually do this on people? And so they, you know, it was just walking around. And when I could, I learned how to tattoo and set up. And I thought it was really important at the time because there wasn't very many female tattooists around then. I'm sure there are quite a lot now. And I hadn't heard of anybody that was specifically doing it to mark people's rites of passage. So because I thought there's a real need for it, and people did actually come in and start expressing that, you know, I mean obviously it could be something like a birthday, but or a child's birth or something like that. But people wanted it for more important things that they'd gone through, like initiations in their life, and they felt like they really wanted to show that. And so we designed something to fit their body. It was important that it wasn't just kind of put on. It had to fit the flow of the body and be important. And that was amazing privilege to do that.
So I mean, I've done a little bit of work with not with tattoo artists, but in terms of getting that trust. You know, when you got the trust of the person that's asking you to do the work. And I've found some of the work doesn't match up when it goes on the body, but then again, a good tattooist will really make it work. So what you know, you must have built up some trust in the past when you were working on that kind of subject.
I was very lucky that I'd already sort of built up a little bit of a reputation with my artwork, so people knew that they were going to get somebody that could at least draw. And I'd also trained in counselling, so I was quite good at when people came in, I could put them at ease and listen to them, and so I created a nice environment where it wasn't sort of, wasn't like a typical tattoo studio really at the time. And people would just open up and tell me all sorts of amazing things, really trust me. And then there'd be the nerve-wracking thing of having to do this very important piece of work for them.
Because I mean, the tattoos they're on for life, aren't they? And that's that.
And you know that every single. I mean, for keeping you in the now and focused, it is the most perfect thing to do.
Well, I mean, and so there must be some that you remember. Have you got any that are really memorable? You know, that you can think of visually over the years.
No, I can't.
No, okay.
Nothing that's.
I mean, it's such an important thing. I mean, I've never had a tattoo, and you know, it's one of those things that kind of I find a bit frightening. But it is a big choice.
Huge.
It's there. So, you know, you have to be happy with it.
Absolutely.
So, and then so you went from obviously you're doing the tattooing, and then you've moved on to canvas, and so how was that? You know, how did that feel, the change between going, because it's totally different working on something that's a tattoo and then going to the larger scale. What was that like?
Well, that was equally nerve-wracking because I don't know, there's something about having this large white canvas in front of you that you think, oh, I'm going to mess it up, and you know, you're kind of tentative about it, and then...
Because that's a ritual in itself, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You know, I mean, talking about the tattoos being ritualistic, but
it is.
staring at the white canvas...
You've got to have something very important to say to want to put that first mark on there, I find.
Yeah, it's Snow White blindness, it's all opportunity, everything's there, all potential.
Yes.
And I know exactly what you mean. I mean, most artists, anybody listening to the show will know,
they'll know.
You know, you've got this kind of opportunity there to really let something unfold.
Yes.
And you don't know what's going to arrive. You don't really.
Nope.
I mean, you have ideas. It depends on how you work, but most don't know. And even if you do know, it could change.
Absolutely.
And it could really become something else.
Yes.
So is any of those tattoos that became, did any tattoos become canvases, or is that something that never happened?
No, it never did. No.
Right, interesting.
But it's something like that where you know exactly what it's going to be, and then something like the canvas is where you don't.
I see. Yeah, so it's self-contained. I understand. Yeah, brilliant. It's really interesting, and we'll no doubt talk about that a little bit more. So, still more to come on this week's show, but we're just about to go and have a little break. So we'll see you shortly. Welcome back to The People's Art, and still to come today, we'll be hearing more from this week's guest, Poppy Palin, and we'll also be seeing lots of your work in the Viewers Gallery. But now to something different.
And they want to kill you because they don't care about your rights and they don't care about your will to live. They just want your money!
Press the hand and rips the back. Rise again, integrity attack. Slave master's reign comes to an end. Will of the people will now transcend. Don't give a shit about the system. Lies and cheats, devoid of wisdom. Little change in prison choice. Road to attack with the righteous voice. Words off politically correct on off the soul with no effect. The police on the prowl, directed by a moon that makes them howl. Clarinet cast on the masses, snares the mind of diverse classes. Through vibrational cell, stop the magic of perception spell. Not your slave, not your slave, not your slave, not your slave, not your slave. Hot dog brave, not your slave. Hot dog brave. Better on society, life of the conscious awareness is about to buzz. Big brother seeks regulations, dramatic oppression will dissipate. So fear will be cynical, tools of the man seen as critical. They begin to harvest the stock, and millions recover from the mental shock. The controllers of battered minds.
Well, Poppy, it's lovely to have you back, and I mean, this work's amazing, isn't it? I mean, let's just, we've got close to it. Let's talk about this piece in particular. Does it have a title?
It's not finished yet.
Oh, right,
It's in progress, but it's 90% finished.
Okay, yeah, I mean, do you find I do? You know, you paint and then you leave it for a while, you come back to it, and is that why it's not finished, or is it?
I've just... it's just how it is.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It has got a sort of tentative title because I want it to be about the what I call the Wild Dreamer.
Right. Okay. The Wild Dreamer.
The Wild
because
Dreamer.
It's got this. I mean, this idea of. I mean, it's very spiritual. There's lots of light and movement in it, and there's this all-embracing connectedness that you were talking about before. It's all in there. The all-embracing spirit of things. What's the significance of the dreamer and the animals, for example? What's the symbolism behind it?
Well, the Wild Dreamer is meant to represent our untamed, all there is, all creativity, all conscious self, basically, dreaming the dance of life.
Right, so it's like in the dreaming, like in the Aboriginal idea of the dream time. Is that a connection, or is that just by and by?
It could be.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but it's mainly the idea of, you know, our creator self dreaming.
Yeah.
the creation.
Is there
really.
Significance with it's a hair, isn't it?
I always have a white hair,
okay,
which I sort of see as a magical creature that's
Yeah.
kind of moving between worlds.
Well, they were, weren't they? They were considered as magical. There's a Wicca tradition, there's Celtic,
Yes,
there's
yes.
pagan, all that kind of.
I think they
we
are
haven't
just
talked
special,
about that,
very
have we?
special
But they are.
creatures.
There's something unusual about them. When you see one in real life,
It's quite-
there's something about them.
Yes,
they
there is.
don't look as though they're of this world. They're in between worlds, and a lot of animals do have that. Well, a lot of people do, but a lot of animals
Yes.
do, don't they?
They just stop and look at you. They're probably just frightened, but there's something about that, and you just think, wow,
Yeah.
thanks for...
And they're rare in these
Yes,
isles now.
they are.
So the white hair, obviously, with the dreamer in this kind of underground or hidden world, like a cave almost.
Yes, they're under the
I
earth.
love caves. You know,
Do
it's
I?
that kind of place you go into when you're working as well,
Yes.
don't you?
So I suppose it could be me dreaming.
I was just going to ask that. Is there a certain amount of yourself
I
in the
think
work?
that's me.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to kind of sink into the ground and be part of the roots and the seeds.
So it's you. It's kind of you in a non-human form, maybe.
Yes.
Is it you as the animals, or are these just other? Do you put yourself everywhere in a painting? I do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I just adore all of those creatures, and those are the creatures that I see routinely whenever I go out in Wiltshire. So
Yeah.
I wanted to bring them.
It's a lovely part
together.
of the world, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. How's it been received, your work?
I haven't shown my work anywhere, unfortunately. So that's yet to come.
Why haven't you done that?
It just hasn't happened for financial reasons,
Right.
or just have it because I'd need help to do it. So it just hasn't come together yet, but hopefully it will.
It's a lot of work, isn't it? I was
Yeah.
saying this to one of the other guests, and I've said this to other artists as well. It's so time-consuming.
Yes.
Putting on a show. I mean, this is why the people's art's so good, because it's almost like having a show in that sense. So,
Yes.
but it is time-consuming. It's a lot of money, a lot of commitment, and a lot of planning.
Yeah.
So,
But it would be wonderful because that's why you do it, isn't it? You want people to see it.
yeah.
That's it.
No, I know. What kind of exhibitions do you go to then, if you do?
I do. Now I'm trying to think what they are because
Yeah.
your mind goes blank when someone asks you
I
a
mean,
question.
do you? I mean, I like a mixture of local exhibition
Yeah.
spaces, and I always go to if there's something big on. I haven't seen the Paul Klee one yet,
No.
and I want to go and see that. But you know, is it important to you as a painter to go to exhibitions?
Yes,
It is.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I think the last thing I saw was Eric Ravilius,
oh yeah,
who I'm very fond of.
I haven't seen that. But yeah, yeah. I think you know, I find it inspiring looking at other people's work, and what I've noticed about your work with this one and the other piece over there is that we have this kind of expressionistic style, you know, and I'm thinking of the German expressionists and the Franz Marc, not so much this one, but your other work, and there's an energy, a movement.
Yes.
And I think is that something that you're looking to convey?
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
that endless journey,
that
movement,
energy
spiritual,
is driving everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely wonderful. The texture and the detail is absolutely amazing. It really is fantastic. Okay, well, it's great. Well, thank you for coming on the show,
Thank
Poppy. It's
you,
been a real
Neil.
treat. It's really lovely to see this kind of work. And next, we're going to go to the gallery. And that's just about it for this week. And thanks for tuning in, and make sure you come back and see us next time. And just before we go, we were sent this lovely book by Andrew MacDonald, this book of poetry from South Korea. Thank you so much. This is absolutely beautiful. So we'll see you next week.